anytime we mention Geno, who is a very polarizing player, there are naturally and very quickly reactions of either people standing up for Geno or people saying, find someone else. And that part of the conversation is completely moot. Like,
Yeah.
I think that if you're someone who says, hey, I really like Geno and I don't think he had enough weapons, then that argument is still there for you. But if you want someone else here, I don't think that person finds success as a quarterback until this team improves up front. So that, to me, is why this conversation is so important. And it's also interesting, as we kind of transition to the next part of this, Bump, where the Seahawks have found success with weapons. Because it's not like Geno doesn't have people to throw to. It's not like he doesn't have two good running backs in the backfield. I mean, this team and John Schneider in general have been pretty solid when it comes to finding good weapons. Like, they've not commonly been like an elite group overall, like an elite skill position group. But we're not looking at the Chargers. We're not looking at a team, like the Panthers were for a little bit, where people are going, who's he going to throw to?
Chargers still got in, though.
They did.
They did, and that's a result of their division as well. I agree with what you're saying, but I also think that, going back to how you started, I also think that there are quarterbacks that could have done more with what Geno had, even behind this offensive line. But these guys are already locked into 10-year contracts for $50,
Right.
$60 million.
Right.
So that is what someone is thinking out there. Well, if you had Josh Allen, what if you had a Jaden Daniels? What if you had a Patrick Mahomes and Lamar? Yeah, there's about 5 or 6 guys that could elevate this team to a different place. Everyone else, even Sam Darnold, who had a great year, even Jared Goff, throw in Brock Purdy, even Jalen Hurts, who's in the playoffs right now, I don't think they get on this football team and do more than what Geno did. Their numbers might look different. They might not turn the ball over as much as Geno did, but I don't think they're getting on this team and now you're winning 3 or 4 games off top, 3 or 4 more games off top.
Yeah. Where they have struggled, obviously, is the offensive line. Something you've pointed to, not just as part of this conversation, but a million times before. That was also with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson played through it. They were able to win in spite of it. The most they've ever invested in the offensive line in terms of actual spending was in their Super Bowl year. I don't think that that's an accident. While I don't think the offensive line was by no means a top reason they were a Super Bowl winning team. Obviously, you look at the Legion of Boom and that defense overall, and then you look at Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson and explosive plays they had on offense. It is not a coincidence that the best offensive line they've had in the last 10, 11, 12 years was in that Super Bowl winning season.
Yeah.
Best offensive line they've had.
Makes sense.
So I think that's where you obviously need to start. Like, if we have conversations about, hey, have the Seahawks done enough to help Geno out? Have they genuinely done enough? I think they've given him a first-round wide receiver, and that was a vote of confidence. They took an offensive tackle at number 9 overall. That's a vote of confidence. But it's not enough.
No, I think they've tried. That's the part that gets missed in all this, is that it's not like they're ignoring the line of scrimmage or the offensive line. It's not like they're going into these drafts and saying, nah, we don't need a guard. Nah, we don't need no tackles. Like the last 2-3 seasons, they've done that. The problem is they've just gotten the wrong guys. It's not like they've gone on during the offseason and said, we're not going to bring a veteran in. You have. You brought veterans in. You just brought in the wrong guys. So they haven't done enough in some areas, but I don't think it's from lack of trying. It's from lack of eval. It's from getting the right guys here. That's the part that's missed. I know you guys want to hold John accountable, and you should. This is his job to create this roster. You want to hold Geno accountable, as you should. It's his job to protect the football. But there are 2 stories to this, or 2 sides to the story, is that, all right, they have tried. They haven't done enough because they've missed on these guys.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I think, too, it makes it clear what their top priority is for the offseason. Find those weapons then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, they're going to look for a defensive-minded head coach, constantly improve the defense. But, Bump, I really like that multiple times over the course of the season, particularly after the trade deadline and particularly at season's end, you said, you know why, in part, we saw improvement on the defense? They made an effort to improve on the defense. It became clear that with the offense, they were like, these are the pieces we have. Figure out a way to make it work. There was no midseason trade deadline move to fix the offense. There was no, big trade before the season to add to the offensive line. Like, there was no move made. It was just, we have enough faith in these pieces. Let's see what it looks like. And then it was on Ryan Grubb to try to save the day.
Yeah, and teams got to be willing to move pieces too. You know, it's not like you just say, why don't you just trade for this guy? Because that team might be asking for something that the Hawks aren't willing to give up. You know, it's not like you throw an offer out there and it's automatically accepted. A lot of you guys play fantasy football, right? Trades get rejected all the time. So I always reserve that the same way I do with the Mariners, because we talk about their offseason moves or lack of offseason moves, and we don't know what they've thrown out there, right? I'm sure they've tried something that's not sticking. They're not offering enough, or they don't want to give up something. I think that can be said with Seahawks as well. Someone has to be willing to trade with you. So if they have tried to trade some guys or get something over here, that means the moves just haven't been aggressive enough. So, but absolutely, they addressed that defense. They did everything they needed to do. Or maybe they looked at the offense and thought, we have enough talent on this offensive line. We just got to coach them up. We got to coach them up. So then that maybe links you back to why Grubb isn't here anymore. Maybe he felt like he wasn't coaching these guys up enough or getting them ready. There's so many ways to look at this, but at the end of the day, it comes down to what you said.
Yep.
Outside looking in, on paper, no. Not enough was done to support Geno, I think.
A couple people split on whether, again, any mention of Geno, even if that's not what this conversation is, will turn into whether or not you want Geno. But let's do a hypothetical here. Let's say that you're someone who wants them to draft Jalen Milroe. You want them to draft Jackson Dart. You want them to draft a quarterback, and ideally in your mind, they just kind of throw the reins to that quarterback and see what they have. How's that quarterback going to do on this offense if you don't have Tyler Lockett, if your offensive line is playing exactly the same? You know what I mean? Like you couldn't get a run game going at all in the last 2 seasons back to back. You were like 28th in rushing yards per game or rushing attempts per game. Like what changes? Is this quarterback so incredibly special? I mean, maybe he is. Maybe he is. Maybe he's Jaden Daniels 2.0. That would be amazing. But those seasons are typically statistical outliers. I feel better making sure that young quarterback then has the weapons and tools to succeed.
A mobile quarterback helps with the offensive line issues. It definitely does. It's simple observation. You get a young guy back there who can run and make guys miss, he's less likely to be sacked. But then you look at the Chicago Bears. They have a mobile quarterback over there, yet he was the most sacked quarterback in the game. So there's always, when it comes to these conversations about these hypotheticals about, well, if this guy was here and Geno was there, and if that guy was there and Geno was here, what would happen? We don't really know. We don't really know because there's so many other factors. There's play calling. There's chemistry. There's understanding of the playbook. There's so many other things that factor into it. Why do you think Sam Darnold had the season he had this year? Because he was in the right situation for who he is mentally, for his physical capabilities, communication with the offensive coordinator. He was in the right spot. So just to say that you bring a guy over here, plug in, and he's good to go, I can only say that for 5 guys in this league. Only 5 of them. And the 5th one just entered the chat, and Jaden Daniels. Everyone else, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Brock Purdy, I don't know. I don't think so. All right, but there's so many things that have to go right. If you are not elite of the elite, you don't elevate teams like that. That's why quarterbacks get drafted 1 through 10 every single draft, because you're looking for that.